Hey there, Alex here. For those of you new to Behind the Podium, I just want to give you a heads up that we do use adult language. You'll definitely want to grab a pair of headphones if there are kids around or you're at work. Now, on to the show.
Welcome to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. Problem solvers have problems too. So here at Behind the Podium, I, Jared Cohen, and my co-host Alexander Ellis discuss the struggles, philosophies, demands, and practices of the coach, or said more broadly, health and wellness practitioner. To provide quality coaching is to enhance someone's life in an everlasting and unfolding way. This is not easy and requires a lot of due diligence and self-mastery on the part of the coach to be able to perform. So without further ado, join us as we dig deeper into the depths of the coach's mind. Welcome back, or welcome to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. I am Jared Cohen with my partner in crime,
Alexander Ellis.
And today we go behind the podium with a coach, fitness mover and shaker, San Diego State University alum with a degree in kinesiology, former Trader Joe's employee, ambassador of deep V-neck t-shirts and tights or onesies that scream America, ice cream and gummy bear fiend, aspiring ninja, husband, uncle, and soon to be father. Specifically, this guest of ours is currently Fitwall's director of training and head coach. In addition to Fitwall, he is an Animal Flow master instructor, owns his own coaching company, BA Training, teaches workshops for Kettlebell Athletics, and previously coached over 1,400 people in over 80 workshops for MovNat. Without further ado, it is mine and Alex's pleasure to welcome movement and strength and conditioning coach Clifton Harski to Behind the Podium.
Well, thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, man.
Woo-hoo. Yeah, thanks for being here. And what'd you say, Jared? Aficionado of America leggings?
Deep V-neck tees and tights or onesies that are most patriotic.
Very patriotic. In fact, the baby gifts have been coming in with an American theme to them.
It's important.
Simply because of my my shenanigans on Instagram.
Yeah, I was going to say, there was a photo, I guess, a few weeks ago with you in America leggings on a tank.
Mm-hmm.
And like, get your training on.
America, F yeah.
Yeah, where does that passion come from for the red, white, and blue?
You know, I actually grew up around the world. My dad worked for the CIA, so we grew up on a lot of different embassies and consulate generals. And
Oh, wow.
so I think, growing up around military has a good amount of that. Also, when you grow up overseas, you realize that America, despite its problems, is still numero uno.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of folks that have visited overseas but have never lived overseas, and it's quite a difference in between the two. When you travel and you're like, these are all the nice places, that's not what it's like to live there.
Right.
So we still win the awesome award.
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme for those that have grown up around the world, is having a much greater appreciation for what we have going on here. So
yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. It's nice to have that perspective. Did you ever have any military aspirations due to your dad's background?
Not particularly. I was never opposed to it, but I just got kind of wrapped up in school for playing basketball first and then kinesiology, and just didn't end up doing it.
Yeah.
But two of my brothers did. One of them went to the Navy. Now he works for the NSA, and the other one did the Coast Guard. So.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
NSA, which means he's totally listening.
Yeah.
He knew what I was going to say before I said it.
Yeah. He's monitoring in the other earbud.
Already. You've said too much.
I know.
That's cool. I dig it. So is he pretty critical of a lot of CIA type movies?
Not particularly, though. I haven't really ever asked him. I didn't know he worked for the CIA until I was late teens, I think. So
okay.
I thought that had to be a secret.
Yeah, it was. Apparently all my other family knew, though. It's just not me.
For show and tell, he kind of came in and was like, yeah, I represent some people.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, what's great about getting to talk to someone like you is that you've been in the fitness industry for over a decade and have had a wide range of experiences during that time that have helped to inform your coaching philosophy and practice. So I figured to start, it'd be cool to hear from you how coaches and mentors of yours over the past decade have shaped your approach to coaching and where you find yourself and think about coaching today.
Okay. Well, I work pretty closely with a few, I don't know if you want to call them prominent, but certainly folks that have taught a lot of workshops and certifications and been around for a while. For, first of all, Erwan LaCour with MovNat, who is a really taught, and I picked up on the necessity of being an engaging, entertaining presenter so that you can capture your audience and keep them engaged, because there are some very smart folks out there with great information that are just boring as rocks, and you're not going to pick up as much from them. And so with him, it was one of the first things that I saw is that his ability. Now he's a little bit of a cheater because he's got this sweet French accent, and but what I saw from him is that, and this is a common thread across many modalities, is if you can do the stuff well, it sort of is inspiring to movement nerds. So with Erwan, if you ever watch any of his videos, like he's silky smooth mover, he does all sorts of impressive physical things. And as fortunate or unfortunate as it may be, when you can do cool stuff, people listen to you.
Right.
So you may be naturally very strong, and then you tell somebody that this is how you got strong. It's a lie, because you were just strong anyway, but it is helpful. So I've been, I used to shy away from quote unquote showing off, but now you got to throw a little bit in there, because it lets people say like, hey, maybe this is going to work, and this is inspiring a little bit.
Interesting.
So I took that from Erwan. Then from Jason Brown, who owns Kettlebell Athletics, who I teach for, I believe what I try to emulate from there is just an ease. So he's just easygoing while he does it. Like, he's so comfortable with the material that it doesn't make it feel so lectury. It's just like, hey, no, like this is easy, and it should be easy, and you should take what I'm teaching, and let's not overcomplicate this stuff.
Yeah.
So I think he does that really, really well. I mean, he does another workshop called play-based training. So for him, almost all the training is sort of play-based, even your strength work, which I would agree with. I mean, it's if you dig training, it's sort of like your hobby, your activity. So that ease of delivery is something that I think is important, because it puts your people at ease.
Yeah.
So if you've got engagement and ease, those two things are quite nice. And then not to go too far the other direction, but with Mike Fitch, who runs the Animal Flow show, he is sort of misleading. Like when you see him, he's very pretty. He moves really well.
Right.
He's got the shaka bro hair. And but when he talks, he's very, very intelligent, very articulate, and speaks science quite well. But the thing that I really like to take from Mike is he might be one of the more humble folks that I've seen talk. And that specifically comes through when he is citing influences. So with Animal Flow, he's the first to say, like, I didn't invent all of this stuff. I just learned a lot of different modalities and put them together in a system that made sense to me. And so he will give kudos to every other system that he borrowed from into his own. And that's all anybody's personal system is an accumulation of all the things that you learn. But a lot of folks are, they're like, I invented this crawl. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's a crab walk.
Yeah.
I was doing that in elementary school. So,
Right.
And so, his humbleness and his willingness to cite other people, I think, is an important one, because it doesn't devalue you as a coach. It just simply showcases like how much you're out there trying to learn.
Right.
So I would say that, those 3 folks who have employed me, and 2 of them I still work for, those are things I try to borrow from them.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I love the 3-pronged approach you built there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A nice little stool. Without like putting anyone down or naming names, are there characteristics on the other end of the spectrum that you've observed over your time working for others, or working close to others, or attending others' events, that you have internalized as things you purposefully make an effort to not do, or shy away from, in terms of the impact of that kind of delivery or type of communication?
There's, yeah, for sure. There's one specifically that's big on my, at the top of my head, which is, if somebody asks you a question you don't know, it's okay to say you don't know.
Yeah.
And that I will look for that, and not make stuff up. Or if you do make stuff up, say that hey, this is my best guess.
Right.
There are certain people you can watch, whether it just be at a lecture, at a Perform Better, or idea conference, or wherever, and somebody will ask a question, and then they'll pause, and you're like, I'm pretty positive he's making this up right now.
Yeah.
And that's, cool, but you don't have to have all the answers, man. Like, I just want a few of them from you.
Right. Interesting.
So being able to be confident enough in what you're presenting, and understand that you're not presenting on everything in life ever, and saying that, hey, I don't know that part, I think is a pretty valuable piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So agree with that.
I like the point about citing your sources too. It's something we've talked about on here, and it was a big thing that Kelly mentioned when we recorded with him, is really being able to show your work, so to speak. And that's really, it's also just helps to give people context of like, where are you coming from, and why are you doing what you're doing? And for those that are really interested in what you are doing, it gives them a little bit of a roadmap for, the Cliff Notes. Like, oh, okay, like he's talking about this, like, and he referenced this and that. Okay, now here are some places I can go further in trying to get more from this, or understand more deeply where he's coming from, and give myself more information, so I don't have to be as critical of what's going on. I can see where this is coming from.
Yeah, I just think it's really powerful to say. Powerful is kind of a weird word for me to use there, but like it really gives you legitimacy that you're not just making it up,
right?
And that you're well learned yourself. Learned, more smarter.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, when we don't cite our sources or give credit where credit is due, there's this sense of like, well, I know it all, and like, this is the best, and like, that's not good, which I think can be really confusing for people, because you're like, well, so-and-so said I had to do it this way. Is that the only way you can do it?
Yeah, that's really cool that you said that. You may have noticed in the kettlebell cert that we did recently that I steer clear of black and whites quite a bit. I'm like, yeah, that way works, but this other way also works. And this school that you're thinking of, because I know what you said comes from this particular organization, they make everything black and white. And black and white is factually easier to teach.
Right.
Because it's like, do it this way. And if it's not that way, don't do it that way, because it's wrong. Now, I just don't particularly buy into that idea. I think that at the cert, I said there's 2 things that I think make up for an exercise. It needs to be safe, and it needs to accomplish the goal you're trying to accomplish. If it's those 2 things, then it can look a lot of different ways based on who you are. And you can shift it to get close to exactly what you want to do. But really, there's two rules: be safe and accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. And so, like, for instance, the kettlebell swing, there's not a particular knee flexion amount and hip flexion amount that makes it a valuable exercise. It's going to be valuable in a huge number of different flexion angles. It's just going to change the amount of contribution from hamstring, glutes, quads, adductors, etc., based on how you set up. Mm-hmm. So being able to, going back to our original point, like being able to cite multiple places of information that led you to this position makes it seem like you're not just being a contrarian for the sake of being a contrarian.
Right.
You're like, no, I got rationale behind why you might want to do it in different ways.
Mm-hmm. When working with beginners, because I know at Fitwall, there's people walking the door who probably haven't worked out a day in their life. Do you find that giving these explicit, like, not necessarily rules, but like, they have to have some sort of baseline, right, to learn it, and then we can take the rules away and give a little bit more play, would you say?
Yeah, and it's a really awesome question, because it's almost two different positions I have to take. When I'm talking to coaches, I try to get coaches to think more about the gray, because that's where versus black and white, because that's where they're going to be dealing with clients. With clients, like you say, when they first come in, man, if you try to give them the gray, then they just get very confused. So you got to go a little bit black and white, and then try to progress them over time. Mm-hmm. But the reason I think it's important with coaches to get into the gray early is so that they understand to not scare the hell out of their clients with black and white rules.
Yeah.
So going back to the clients, when we get clients in, they'll be, some of them are just freaking out about their form. Like, how's my alignment? And it's fine. Like, you're not going to spontaneously explode if you just happen to move to the left by 4 inches. So, our rule at Fitwall is, if it hurts, don't do it. If you feel unsafe, don't do it. Until then, it's probably going to be fine. And what we're going to do is spend the month trying to get you better at the workouts that we're doing. And all we need to make sure is that it's safe and that you're accomplishing what we want to accomplish, and we can progress it in specific ways with repetition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that distinction between coaching coaches versus coaching clients. One serving a greater purpose to hang out in the gray, versus the other ones there being a more of a need, at least initially, to paint it in black and white. And like you said, it's a timeline. So they both can end up in the gray and they both can get some black and white, but this idea of starting early with coaches to be in the gray, I think is really important, because it helps already condition us to be okay with the dissonance that is going to happen no matter what, as we continue to learn more about methodology and principles.
Yeah, I hope that it sets coaches up to be thinkers versus parrots, because you get a lot of folks that they come to my certs or my workshops and they've done a certification and they are simply a parrot of that one certification. Now, to be fair, I think that's probably a fairly normal part of the process.
Right.
Like, I know I've gone through it, where it's, for a while, like, just deadlift, man. Just deadlift and get strong. And if you get strong, everything else is fine. And then people get hurt and you're like, oh shit, maybe that wasn't right. Yeah. Interesting. All these old guys were right about maybe having back off days and things.
What are they talking about? Nonsense.
Weird.
Yeah. And so for you personally, what has been your own evolution in dealing with the gray? Has there been times where, like, for instance, at the beginning, you mentioned 3 big mentors and influences, Erwan, Jason, and Mike. And were there times during the process of working with them where you felt certain types of conflict as related to methodology or how to coach something that it was difficult for you to resolve?
I don't think so. I got to them after that period. So what I mean is through college and while I was managing at Trader Joe's is really where I did a lot of my own experimenting with training. Now, funny enough, I've gone right back to what I did intuitively in college. But then I went down the strength is all that matters rabbit hole, deadlift, squat, bench, press.
Right.
I never really benched, but deadlift, squat, press. And I got big, I got strong, and then I also got broken. So once I went down the rabbit hole into the movement piece, I found myself getting back into exactly what I did intuitively. That made me the thing that kind of dictates my training is always, how do I feel on the basketball court? So when I got back into these movement pieces, and that's such a broad spectrum, I know, but it just means more planes of motion, more different things, probably not as high on the max strength level, prioritizing power over strength. And those things make me feel significantly more athletic. So when I'm on the basketball court, even now at close to 35, this actually just happened last week. This is not to try to sound braggy, but it was awfully flattering for me. I had young to mid 20 guys, after I caught a nice little tomahawk dunk on them in a game, asking me how, hey, do you mind if we ask how old you are?
Yeah.
And I told them, they're like, what in the hell is going on? Like, how are you doing that? I'm like, well, I happen to work in fitness. I happen to think I know a decent amount on helping people feel athletic.
Right.
And so that's kind of where my programming lies at this point, is taking a rather broad approach with some specifics. And it's like, hey, if we can make our shoulders and our hips feel a little better, and we feel a little more powerful and explosive in general, I think that we're probably going to be doing pretty well.
Yeah, and finding that context. Right. For me, how I do on the basketball court would not tell me anything because I'm awful at basketball. But I always tell my clients, trying to find the context for them.
Yeah.
Like the reason why we're doing push-ups or, whatever it is in yoga class is because I want you to be able to push your cart through Costco with the kitty litter and the water and the 900 pounds of beef you're going to buy or whatever. It's not, anything too crazy. It's just like, can we do the things we want to do well and without being injured?
Yeah, I actually really like, not to sound surprised, but I really like that find your context idea. Like, I got to make a note of it and steal it.
Yeah, and I like it because it allows people to have it, the workout, the training stimulus. It's a means to an end, right? It's not the end in and of itself. It's a part of one's practice in order to exist better and enjoy more of the other things that they should and want to be doing and engaging in. That being said, how do you talk to clients that first come in who are kind of removed from that and they're kind of sucked into this world of like, this is my everything, like that there really isn't much sense of identity beyond the gym, even if it's like a first timer, right? They've sort of gotten their head around like, okay, I'm gonna turn my life around and I'm gonna do it by just committing everything to the gym, and I am gonna be a gym person. What are your thoughts on helping for them to find some context for themselves?
The first thing that we try to do, and you use the term, you said practice, and you said a means to an end. For these folks that you're talking about, for most people that come to gyms, the workout, the singular day, that workout is the end and is their goal. Like, I need to get a good sweat.
Right.
I need to get a good workout. We actually give them a sheet of paper that says working out versus practice. And it says, my favorite thing about yoga is the fact that they use the term practice, which immediately sets everything up in yoga to be let's use another yoga term, a journey.
Right.
And to go from one point and get improvement over time. But unfortunately, people show up to a workout and think that today I need to kick the crap out of myself in order for this to be beneficial. Versus if we were to be able to take the practice mentality with everything we do and just understand that, hey, like, really, we just need to go over time to get better. One of the things that I think has helped with that to a certain extent, and I might be contradicting myself, I'm not sure, is CrossFit in general, right? Like, they teach certain skills, and just using the term skills allows them to try to get better. So eventually, even in those singular workouts, that's a competition, they can win or do better. So it's something that I would like for us to do better, is give people benchmarks and goals to work towards. We try to do it every month with new workouts and say, hey, you're going to repeat. So we do a different workout every day of the week, but we repeat them for the entire month. So the Monday is the same workout each Monday in June. With the goal being your last Monday, like, you're nailing it. You're doing the most amount of weight, the best form, and you feel like you've improved. And we get that every single month, so it's kind of cool. But it's still not done as well as certain CrossFits with their leaderboards. Right. And here's our goal. Like, if you can get 1.5 times body weight, you unlock, this gold star or whatever it happens to be. Those things, I think, turns people's gym experience into more goal and results based and practice like than I'm going to get a workout.
Yeah. And I like how you kind of, I think my assumption is you sort of caught yourself when you said, I think I may be contradicting myself, because in some ways it can become a contradiction, right? That I think there is a lot of value in that model. For instance, I think another good parallel is the martial arts world, right? Is having belts, and I was talking to my martial arts instructor about this recently, who teaches Jeet Kune Do, which is the martial art that Bruce Lee essentially came up with. And the problem with that is that there isn't this long history of having belts associated with it. So those that get sort of certified, if you will, in this practice aren't really given the curriculum with which to kind of set this up, where people have these progressions that is then less about how to teach it, but more about, okay, how do I create the like motivational structure where people tangibly feel like, oh yeah, like there's another thing I can get, whether it's another gold star or it's a stripe on my thing. And it sounds like it's definitely a balance in what that does to kind of get people moving in the right direction. But then again, how that maybe can become an end in of itself. It's sort of like chasing something that doesn't have maybe as much inherent value or intrinsic value as just kind of showing up and enjoying that 40 minutes or an hour of training.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to do before I got into Fitwall with my kettlebell-based business was to copy the martial arts belts, but with bright neon-colored headbands. And you basically unlock, hey, this is your hinge movement, but once you show that you can do a snatch instead of a swing, you can snatch. And I know that there's is it Czar in New Mexico who works for Strong First? They have a belt or a wristband or some sort of thing that does this, and they're not the only ones. I'm sure there's plenty of good gyms around the country that do a similar idea. It's like, hey, once you test out of certain skills, you get to level up, and then you get the cool thing, like you're at the gym and you're the badass in class that is doing the snatch to windmill thing, and everyone else is pressing. So you feel good about it.
Right.
It's interesting about, this idea of goal-oriented stuff. In the yoga studio I teach at, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, they do a challenge where the challenge is how many classes in this 1 month can you come, can you attend?
Right.
And I was, as you guys were talking, I was thinking, well, yoga people, I think there's a certain type of personality that's attracted to yoga, somebody who is okay with just going through the process and sitting with that and being okay with that. But wow, things change during the challenge. And people are like, yeah, I went to 10 classes this week and look at all the stickers I got. I'm like, oh my God, your shoulders are destroyed. So yeah. I think, everybody has that element of the
gamification. We get into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it gets extreme. And then I'm like, hello, what was the point of this in the first place?
Challenges are so funny to deal. We just ended a 30-day challenge, and we loudly tell people, we don't want you to hear more than 6 times in a week.
Yeah.
We don't want you to do 2 classes in a day. And there are still people that just they're in it. They're in it to win it.
Right.
Yes. But I mean, for what you're saying with the headbands too, as far as motivation, because one thing I've found with my training is when I approach it with this just practice process, sometimes I get kind of bored because I'm just there and I'm doing stuff. And so having goals to work towards makes it more interesting, and you can still enjoy the process, but then you're evaluating these benchmarks. So for me, it was a pull-up. I want to be able to do a pull-up. And so everything was around that. Mm-hmm. And then when I achieved it, I was like, awesome, what's next? Versus, I'm just going to go with the flow for months and months and months. And now I'm tired of going to the gym.
So a question for you, for both of you, how often are you resetting your goals? This is something I find to be useful for myself, is short-term, 1 to 2 to maybe even 3-month goals versus these lifelong pursuits that, some folks are like, I want to get to a 4 times deadlift. I'm like, that's cool. Good luck for the next 15 years.
Yeah, right.
and they'll call me like, well, you're just a quitter. You don't want to put in the work. I'm like, no, man, I just have better things to do than one particular thing. So how often are you resetting?
As you're asking that, I'm like, oh, wow, I haven't done it recently. I need to get back to the drawing board. But if we think of context, for me, my training is to supplement my teaching and my life. And if I'm feeling good and feeling strong in my body, then that to me is okay, you're doing good things. But now I'm like, oh shoot, I really should have another goal of something to work towards. But I completely agree too with this short-term idea. Or even, if somebody has, I want to do the 4-time deadlift, breaking that down to all the steps and then following the short term. And we've talked about goals on here before. And so I'm having a little bit of guilt. I should apply what I do for my business to my training as well. But short term, I'd say for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, it comes a lot back to my own personality and what is the surrounding context. So oftentimes, I just get caught up in this, I need to do something rather than nothing, And so the daily goal is just kind of staying connected to movement and being able to be disciplined about a minimum effective dose. Because I think myself, like a lot of others, will oftentimes resist doing something because they know once they're in, it's hard to contain it, to just the 45-minute session or the hour, as much as it may be hard to get there in the first place. I think some of the difficulty is in knowing that once you're there, it's it becomes this other thing of oh yeah, I can do this, and let me just spend another half an hour here. And so my goal much more comes back to sort of a daily process goal about not just checking the box, but checking the box in a way that continues to condition me to be more disciplined about how I'm spending my time. Because I think for all of us, being in the industry, it becomes this thing of like, we know too much at times, so if we go in for our own training sessions, like it can be like, oh, I have so many things I can do. And myself getting, always very kind of interested in the mobility side of things, I can spend way too long warming up.
Yeah.
And so,
oh shoot, 45 minutes later.
And so like for me, it comes back to that a lot of like, okay, what is just sort of the process goal on a day-to-day basis? And then I'll kind of look at it at the end of the week to kind of see, okay, what was done during this week, and now how does this inform going into the next week? And that's sort of my process, more in a short-term, daily and monthly sort of analysis.
Nice. Very cool.
Before we started talking about goals, I was thinking about, what was I going to say? So we were talking about belts.
Really cool headbands.
Oh, that's right. So, as relates to citing our sources, I heard from sports psychologist Michael Gervais this model, or this framework he calls the 4 T's. So you got talk, teach, train, and test. And I really like this because I think it's a nice simplification, and it's something that as coaches or any kind of practitioner, it gives you a checklist to be accountable for. So my thought is that a lot of times there's a lot of talk and there's a lot of testing, but there isn't much in the kind of teaching and training side of things. So when we were talking about benchmarks and goals, and particularly what seems to be some of the motivational factor within the CrossFit gyms, I think a lot of that has to do with the testing, right? Like there's a huge camaraderie around testing, so much so that it becomes like every time you show up, it's a test. And I think one of the inherent issues in that is it doesn't really allow the coach much time to teach or help instruct the training. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that model, and how you try to help clients be more engaged in that teaching and training side of things.
So it's that's actually exactly what I meant by I might contradict myself. So if you're in a CrossFit gym where you slide into every workout is a competition, a test, then you miss out on what you said, like the training. And for the client, the teach would actually be the learn and acquisition of skill. So you see a lot of I'll just use Invictus as an example, right? They're great. Where I don't think every WOD every day is certainly not a test. It's right. Like, here's your warm up, here's your skill at work for the day, here's your strength training for the day. This might be a little bit of Metcon-y. And I mean, just the power of words like changes things. Not calling it the WOD, right, and instead breaking up into 4 pieces allows you to focus on those pieces, and now you are training, and now you are letting the coaches teach and the clients acquire skills. So I think that's pretty cool, and I think I think once a week, maybe even once every other week is enough to test. Like those are demolishments. Yeah, like if you really are trying to win, you're just gonna. I spent 5 weeks. I know it's not that long, but in a CrossFit box doing 3 on, 1 off. In those 5 weeks, I took so many ice baths. Now, I won a lot of workouts, but God, I was exhausted.
Yeah, right. And it goes back to that fluctuation, which obviously is not an old or is not a new idea. But that going back to kind of what we were saying, how we all think about our goals. That's something I try to come back to is, can I have a strength day at least once a week? Can I have kind of a play day where, like yesterday, I went to this gym that has a bouldering wall, and just with the intent of like, I want to do something on this wall, and then I'll just kind of, once I do that a couple times, I'll figure out what I want to add to that to just, make this a little bit more strength oriented. But it was all about like, I just want to play with this thing. And so the goals become more about kind of that end intention of this training session. And as you said, the power of words is huge in helping clients understand what's about to happen and the way in which they're starting to kind of frame their experience going into this thing.
Yeah.
And I think too, as fitness practitioners, we've been in the game for some time, that we have the confidence to go play. And I'm just thinking of how infrequently my clients are like, oh, I just went and did this on my own and it was great. It's always, hey, what should I do?
Right.
And I'm like, well, enough, like trust yourself. And at least in the context of what I'm doing, I'm like, you're not going to break yourself by stretching for 10 minutes. You'll be fine. Just do something and go for it.
Yeah, I that's a huge point, Alex. And I know for me as a coach, that's something I'm always thinking about is like, how can I equip people with the tools so that like they can have a day where they're like, hey, based on all this kind of stuff that I now feel competent in, I'm going to go play with it in some creative way.
Do you ever feel that the coaches or the trainers, especially the youngers, they're actually worried about letting their clients do that to a certain extent because then they won't need me? And I think that we've realized once, you've been in it long enough that actually that just makes them want to see you more because now you've empowered them.
Right.
Yeah.
At least in theory.
Yeah, no, I'm all about trying to teach them to help themselves because I can only do so much, especially if you aren't not just motivated, but empowered to, because it also, I think people forget your relationship with your client. Like they have relationships with other people too. And why not help them feel more confident and empowered in all of those relationships? So for me, it's let me teach you some anatomy and how things work so that when you go see your physical therapist or when you go see your trainer, you can have a more in-depth conversation with them about your needs and what you want to do.
Yeah.
Which ties into this blog post you wrote about a year ago, in which the title is, Please Stop Ruining Fitness for Clients and Your Peers. And one of the things I like most about it, as Alex just alluded to, is that kind of speaking to this idea of a pay it forward type of agenda. And so I'm very interested in how, as Alex said, like, okay, what can I do to improve your understanding and experience with something so that if you go to someone else in this related field, like if you have to go to a PT or a chiro, you can kind of be, that your experience with them is like being complemented by, whatever you just did in, the gym with me or someone else versus hopping around to all these different practitioners where it's like, oh, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And, don't do that and don't listen to that. Or, you got broke by him and now you're here with me. And one of the things you alluded to in this article is that it becomes, it's almost like a way to differentiate yourself. And we see this in titles like Why Running Will Kill You, If You Can't Squat, You're Going to Fucking Die, Scare Tactics. So, it's interesting that you wrote this a little more than a year ago. What are your thoughts on this topic now? And how do you think about the responsibility we should have as coaches in helping our fellow coaches and practitioners in the industry based on how we communicate why we do what we do?
I feel like it. I mean, I spend so much time in the group fitness studio, so I get all these folks that come in and they're just scared shitless of doing anything. Like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do this. I can't do that. That's gonna. My last trainer told me that's gonna hurt me, and I'm like, whoa, well, your last trainer was. And then I have to catch myself. Right. I don't want to say your last trainer was wrong. I'm like, oh, okay, well, it may not have been at that time, but I think we can probably get you there. And, my goal is to get people to feel like they can do more versus that they're broken and they can't do anything. And I'm not a good resource for pain science or anything, but certainly if you identify yourself as a broken individual, you're probably going to find yourself feeling broken more often than not.
Right.
And that's the big piece that I think a lot of people, trainers and maybe even physical therapists will play into in people's psyche, is that it breeds dependency on that trainer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, you better not go do this by yourself. Otherwise, like, you might hurt yourself. So you should definitely see me. You should keep coming back for this chiropractic adjustment 3 times a week, because if I don't pop your vertebrae 3 degrees to the right, like, you're going to be in excruciating pain and like develop earlobe cancer or something, something weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fear. So much of not just our industry, I'd say the world, preys on our fears, and how to make the most money out of that.
Yeah. And so that's just our general goal, my general goal. And what we try to do with Fitwall is like, no, you can do more. You got, like, we use the tagline, you got this.
Yeah.
And so whether that be like, oh, you can jump up on this wall, you got this. It's just a general mantra of like, yeah, no, you can do it. It's okay. Like, you maybe can't today, but you will be able to. You just have to spend a little bit of time and effort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes me think, I think a great classic example that everyone can relate to is when you get a massage and they do the whole like, wow, you are really tight. That, like, in a sense, like, that's supposed to enhance like your, the experience of this, like, oh God, like, I didn't know, like, well, thank you. Like, now, like, this is all the more justified, this experience, because I am so tight and I need to come back here because, like, I'm tight.
Yeah. Yeah, man, you better get back there.
Yeah. So, well, let's hit on one more thing, and then we'll move into more rapid firing. And that topic I want to hit on is just group classes. I think one of the worries with a lot of people in this space with group classes is like, is this potentiality of safety, right? Especially when you are doing more of these complex motor movements. And pretty simply, what advice would you give group class coaches? And as kind of a second part of that, what do you still struggle with in the efficacy of a good group class?
So I find myself at ends with myself quite frequently, to where I will look at something like a crowded CrossFit room and be like, that's absolutely ridiculous. There's no way that can be done safely. And then I look at it, I'm like, that could absolutely be done safely. And you just have to work into it. So the way that it can be done safely is if you have a good either onboarding or teaching program, and you don't move those people into those higher skilled lifts until they're ready for it.
Right.
The other way is if you have sane programming. Like, I think that you could get 20 people snatching. I'm not a big fan of like super duper high rep snatching with the barbell, those types of lifts. So good programming choices and knowing who's in the class, I think, can go a long way to making damn near anything safe. But that being said, we've made a decision that we wouldn't put big, heavy lifts in our group classes, because our specific group classes are taught with minimal, up to a minute to teach lifts. Mm-hmm. And while we are repeating them week to week, our client doesn't have that much repetition to where they like, I train Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Some do, but even those, they're not that many of them that are really thinking about the skill acquisition component. Like we try to teach it, but in reality, these are parents with 4 kids and a job, and all they're trying to do is not develop disease and not be, they're in it for health, and like some piece of them says it's for aesthetics, but they don't change their diet. So it's really not. It's just like,
right, interesting.
It's escape and it's health. And
yeah.
So for me, I'm like, okay, what's and this, I always feel bad when I say it, but what's our lowest common denominator? That's almost who we keep in mind when we're programming.
Yeah.
And because that's almost ties into your, like, what's the minimal effective dose? Like,
right.
what's the easiest, most simple thing that we can do to elicit the change that we want to get? And let's do that, because that's going to work for an elite athlete, but it's also going to be the most appropriate for a novice. And if we have one or two that are very elite, we'll go whisper in their ear and be like, hey, you can do this instead, which is going to be harder. And that, going back to the power word, like in our coach manual, it doesn't say that we, here's the workout and here's the scaled workout.
Right.
So you losers that can't do the real thing.
Right.
I'm like, now here's the real workout, and you two people that are freak shows, you can do this really hard thing instead.
Yeah.
Because it's more inclusive that way, I think.
100%. Yeah.
So really just in the group, I'm just trying to be as inclusive as possible. Be aware of the space considerations that are going on and the implements that you're using. That's another reason we just don't use barbells. They just take up a lot of room.
Yeah.
And, we try to, if you want to make money, you have to be able to put enough people in a room to charge enough money to make your rent and pay your payroll and pay for toilet paper, because there's a lot of that in the studio.
Yeah.
So
damn right.
It comes down to math, space, and understanding your clients. I would say that the type of fitness studio that you have oftentimes will self-select how well people are going to be able to progress. And so what I mean is, people that end up going to a CrossFit gym and stick around for more than a month are probably going to do a better job of wanting to learn to do other things. It doesn't mean they're going to take the damn time to do it well.
Right.
It just means that they want to. That's up to the studio to make sure that they do it safely. Whereas the people that are really seeking that workout, even though we're the day workout, even though we're trying to progress them into a practice mentality, that's a longer term battle. They still want to just get their ass kicked. So if we can do that in a more intelligent way, I think we're winning. The term I try to use is, I want to provide fitness gummy vitamins.
Right. Yeah. That's great. How long has Fitwall been around now?
4 years now.
Okay. And how would you describe the early adopters that saw this thing and were like, oh, what was their average context? And then how has that changed 4 years later as you guys have gotten more popular, and have obviously evolved in the day-to-day of what you do?
The early adopters liked it because it's hard. Even though we don't try to crush people from a boot camp style, which is just, hey, here's 50 minutes on the clock, we're going to move the entire time. We don't do that. Instead, we have specific work-rest ratios and exercise sequencing that gets the most out of 40 minutes. And so while we're not just yelling at you and trying to kill you, the way that we put it together, it is not an easy workout.
Right.
Now, you could make it significantly easier by picking less weight, doing less reps, stopping 10 seconds early in a set. That's kind of how I do my workouts most of the time.
Yeah.
And but most people, it never ceases to amaze me that the hardest workout of the month is the most popular workout of the month every single time.
Right.
They're like, that I want more like that, where I felt like I was going to die.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you're doing it wrong. And specifically, we have on, and luckily, people aren't one time a week. They're just not going to kill themselves realistically. But we're after longevity is our goal. So we have one specific one on Fridays. It's called our Move format, and it's more cardio in nature. So we have 8 to 9 minute sets of lower level mobility slash, body weight movements that are as rhythmic as possible.
Cool.
And I want you to maintain like a 70%, 75% max heart rate zone during this entire thing. So you should be able to talk or breathe in and out of your nose the whole time. So in our studio, that's as close to a true cardio challenge as we can get, a true aerobic challenge as we can get. But what people do is they try to go 95% the entire time. And then they get done. They're like, that's the hardest workout ever. It's like, no.
You missed the point.
Yeah. Oh well. Some people get it and then they have better results. It's weird. It's crazy.
Right.
But
interesting.
But a lot of people just want to kill themselves.
When I came down to Fitwall and I worked out with my friend Nicole, what's really cool and I liked Nicole was the heart rate monitors and the ability to like track your progress so that when the coach said, hey, try to get it within this range or whatever, you had some frame of reference. Granted, I've only done it twice, so I was like, oh my God, I'm pretty sure my heart rate has never been that high and I might be dying. But it was still cool to know that, with continuity, you would have more information about like what is normal and what is heart rate for me, under exertion, whatever.
Yeah. Do you want to know what your heart rate got up to? I just looked at it.
You just looked at it. Yeah. I was looking at Nicole's and I was like, I'm pretty sure this is like over 200 right now.
So it's one thing, actually, I mean, from a heart rate standpoint, that we do much differently than anywhere else. Almost everywhere else that I'm aware of does estimates. They're like, whatever for you, let's use Orange Theory just as an example. They go, for you, it would be 230 minus your age. And then they would say that's your max heart rate. For us, we say, what did you get your heart rate up to? And we check it every month because heart rate max is somewhat mode dependent. And we never go long and hard enough to get a true max heart rate. And it's not as repetitive or monochromatic as like running or rowing. So we would never really drive a true max heart rate. So it's about 10 less than your true max. Anyway, you did my favorite style at Fitwall, which is our interval, the one where it pushes you very high, then you recover, then you do functional stuff, and then you go back and forth. Yeah.
I remember it well. I just want to know, when are you opening Fitwall in LA, in the Valley, preferably, please?
I would like to get one of those ASAP. I'm hoping in 2018 we have a few more.
Yeah, me too. Because it was so much fun because it was constantly changing, but also still allowed for, flexibility. Like you're saying, maybe I do want to cut out 10 seconds early or, use heavier weight or lighter weight, but you still have the group exercise experience where we're all basically doing the same thing.
Yeah.
The community vibe was awesome.
Yeah, you just like hanging out with Nicole.
Well, Nicole is hardcore. I mean, you talk about somebody who you say do 75%, she's doing 900%. That's Nicole. I was like, you're still going? Oh my God, the clock already stopped. I was done 20 seconds ago.
Good workout buddy for sure.
She is. She's bomb.
All right, well, we'll shift gears here. We got a few rapid fire for you. You don't have to be necessarily rapid in your response, but I will be rapid in my delivery of multiple questions.
All right.
So here's a new one. Has never been asked before. You will be the first. Describe an interesting or difficult challenge for you as a child.
Man, I would say that moving every 3 years would be difficult, but it might be a lie. I think the only time it was difficult was after my middle school years. So after 2 years in Saudi Arabia, because I don't think until you're middle school do you really start making longer term bonds with people. So that was the first time, I moved every 2 to 3 years, and that was the first time I ever that I can remember being bummed out about it. And that was moving from Saudi Arabia to California.
Wow.
And that was a tough one. And then coming into California and going from like being the only one of the few Americans there to being just like normal, like everybody else. It was
Right.
it was a little weird.
Fascinating. What are you currently working on as a coach?
Currently working on as a coach. Right now, it's like I just ordered the book Conscious Coaching by Todd.
Brett Bartholomew.
Bartholomew.
Yes.
I want to read that. I've just heard so many good things about it.
Yeah.
But mainly it's continually, I need to do the best that I can at getting the most out of my coaches, less than get the most out of my clients. Not less than, but it's just separate. And really what it comes down to is it's more of an employee-based coaching thing, which is how do I help to make sure that they're feeling like they are doing what they want to do and have purpose. Like sometimes I honestly have a little bit of a hard time with it because I'm like, I mean, it's your job. Right. You have to work, and sometimes you just need to do the thing. And as long as you don't hate it and you're not going poor doing it, like it doesn't have to be a love affair. I don't really buy into the whole I need to love every moment of my day and my life and my job. No, man, it's a job. Like sometimes it's not going to be what you want to do. Just don't hate it, and that's pretty much anyway. So getting better at helping my coaches and employees to feel good about doing the same type of thing every day, because that's what all jobs are, is doing the same thing most of the time.
As a coach, what worries you the most?
Honestly, it's with client facing. What worries me the most is their training history and how open they are to doing something else. So you just get I think that us and medicine probably is, and nutrition are the ones that where everybody's a damn expert at this point. And so they don't even want to listen to coaches in a lot of instances. They're like, no, that's not how I do it. Oh, well, then why did you come and see me?
Right. Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Like I don't go to AutoZone. Or wherever and be like, actually, I think that you need to check my catalytic converter.
Right.
Like, that's not how you say that. I'm like, oh, yeah. I read about it somewhere.
Yeah. That's so true. Yeah, when I go to those places, I'm like, it's all you, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And the longer that you're in business, going back to one of the things you said about Fitwall, about what was the early adopters, it was the people that liked it hard, but now it's that people get results, and so they show up. So that was the hardest thing about us in every location. We have 6 locations in 6 different markets. So each market that opened was a brand new, hey, you got to prove this out. And it takes a year and a half or 2 to prove it out as enough people having it work. And so now I don't have that worry too much. Now it's like, really, it's just, can I make sure that people slow down enough to not be feeling like they're going to die, and the next day like move like a normal person instead of a broken person because they're so sore.
Right. Is there any topic, fitness, nutrition, or psychology related that you're currently most on the fence about?
Ongoingly, I just don't know how strong is strong enough. So what I mean is, like, there's a point of diminishing returns, and I wish I had an answer for what that point is for most people. I think it's obviously a sliding scale, but I want to say that once gains stop coming easily, and easily might mean, I don't even know what that means. Like, I'd love to be able to quantify all this stuff to a range. Like, hey, once you hit 1.5 to 1.66 times your body weight in a back squat, like, really, you're not going to get a whole hell of a lot more out of it.
Right.
I think it'd be interesting to make those types of claims. I don't know how the hell you would come about that. So I think that super duper high weights lifted is probably overrated for the general population, and being able to do more things better is a better use of time.
Yeah. So before our last one here, you, for those that can't see, you have a bunch of books behind you. If you were to just pick one for a must read, what do you got for us?
Well, for coaches, I would say that this one by, oh, you guys can't see, but The Hungry Brain by Stephen Guignet, who Rob quotes quite a bit in the book next to it, Wired to Eat. I think that one just helps people a lot to understand what it is they're up against. And even though I'm a fitness guy, I know that my best success with clients and what they want, which is some body change and feeling better about, it's confidence boost really.
Right.
If I can get them to understand and make basic changes in their food, they do better. And this helps them understand the battle that they're up against.
Got it. Nice. Goes back to that Empower piece.
I think that one. Oh, and then this one is one that everybody should read, by Gretchen Rubin, Better Than Before.
Nice.
It's just a habit-based book.
Yeah.
Gretchen Rubin, Better Than Before.
Awesome. All right. Well, lastly, what does it mean to you to practice what you preach?
That was, I think, kind of easy for me. It's just being a good role model. And the reason I say it's easy is I got 3 younger brothers. And so I don't really want to be, you never want to get caught doing something that you wouldn't want them doing, is the way that I look at it.
Yeah.
And similar with the clients, like if I'm telling them one thing, but I'm doing another, like I think I have the integrity to feel like an asshole if I'm doing that. And since I don't necessarily want to feel like that, it's not that I don't want to get caught. It's that, no, literally I want to like set the example and be a good role model.
Fantastic. Well, this was awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time, especially with a imminent baby on the way.
Imminent. Serve that thing eviction notice.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for talking with us. I have many, many insights here, and I'll put all of the books and things you mentioned on the show notes. But where can people find you online and hang out with you?
I'm not the most active because, I have old blog posts at cliftonharski.com, and who knows, I might get the urge to put one up every so. I'm averaging like 2 a year for the last 4 years. So it's pretty frequent. But so much of my time is with Fitwall. So, you could at Clifton Harski on Instagram. I'm decently active there. Search Clifton Harski on Facebook. It's a public profile, and I do different training, various things there, along with shenanigans. But those would be the places.
Okay, awesome. Well, yes, seriously, thank you for your insight and just some really good ideas for group classes. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So thank you for taking the time. And until next time, because I still have a lot to process through.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, man. Yes. Well, if you are enjoying the show, please, we'd love a review and a share. All those
only
good
5-star reviews.
All those good things. And yes, until next time, indeed. Hey guys, thanks for listening to Behind the Podium, Unveiling the Coach. If you have enjoyed what you listened to, head over to iTunes and leave us a review. More information on each episode and the podcast in general can be found at behindthepodiumpodcast.com. We'll catch you next time.